Now, given if we examine Disney as a company, they really have been failing a lot lately, especially with the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel. That's the most prime example right now about one of the latest disasters on Disney's end of things. We all know that Star Cruiser Hotel is closing by this September, not just due to the lack of fan interest, but of course how high the price was and how they weren't really getting the droves of fans as much as they expected. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into exactly what's going on here. Now, we know that Bob Iger has been a lot more talkative recently, a lot more direct with the fan base, especially with the release of The Little Mermaid and everything that's happening with Indy 5, The Dial of Destiny, Elementals, etc., etc. He's been very direct with fans of Disney, and whether it be Marvel or Star Wars or just the Disney movies, whatever it may be, Bob Iger is really trying to boost his likeness by becoming a little bit more personable, whether it's genuine or calculated as a business move. Who knows? I would like to think it's the latter, to be honest, but let's move on to exactly what he was actually able to comment on and make an apology about that I feel is probably not genuine and really not sincere toward the fan base, and how it does involve much to do with the character of Han Solo in The Force Awakens, and how he makes a very big apology related to maybe they didn't do things the right way in there. So let's tap into this. Now, with Disney CEO Bob Iger restructuring Disney from the ground up by right-sizing upcoming projects, he eventually was able to get on the subject about past regrets revolving around Star Wars after the planned closure of the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel. Bob Iger went on to state the following to the fans after being questioned about more regrets. "I think I can finally address this in a way for the community to understand by looking back at the sequels. We find that we should have not expired Han Solo in the first film. We realized there could have been a much more way to build him up between father and son before going for the decision to end the character's life in the story. At the time, I know Kathy Kennedy wanted a tragic story in The Force Awakens, something that would create a big emotional response, and perhaps it was nothing more than chasing shock value at this point." So, oh my god, so basically what Bob Iger's saying is that he is now beginning to believe that maybe they were just chasing shock value to create an emotional response, to create word of mouth for The Force Awakens. Now, look, guys, I don't know about you, but I always felt that the death of Han Solo was very cheap and was just a little too out of left field, and here's my reason being why I was always against it. Now, do I admit that it was very emotional? Yes, 100%. Does it make you feel for the character of Han about what his son just did? Absolutely. But the thing that really never made all that much sense to me is that there was, yes, like Bob Iger pointed out, no build-up between father and son. It just felt like an emotional response of a villain killing our favorite hero, not necessarily feeling the tragedy of the son killing the father. You realize that in isolation, but you're not really feeling that deep emotion about a family member betraying another. And that's because those two characters never saw each other face to face and interacted with each other properly beforehand. So what they should have done, and I've always mentioned this before in the past, and even Bob Iger begins to comment on this, somewhat similar to myself, what they should have done is they should have had some kind of scene where they established them as father and son, perhaps even before Ben Solo turned to the dark side. Then in the 8th film, you kill off Han Solo, if anything. So Bob Iger says something very similar. Let's tap into this right now. So on top of this, he goes on to state further, looking back, we could have absolutely kept him at least until the 8th film, and I am sorry about that and apologize if we played things way too safely as we followed a simple and basic template structure for The Force Awakens. We were coming into Star Wars for the first time since George Lucas's controversial prequels. We felt we needed a deep emotional moment for the film. Kathy felt this way, and we agreed that this was the way. This is something that Kathy brought up to us and convinced us was the way to go. We are convinced that these characters needed to end to tell a proper story about opening to create room for the newer characters, and perhaps that wasn't the right strategy to go for. So again, what Bob Iger is saying is that they began to agree with each other, himself, Kathy, the Lucasfilm story group at the time, that to give the new characters limelight, you have to kill off the old characters, the legacy characters. And they did just that. They literally did just that. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what they did. They killed Han, Luke, and yes, even Leia. Even though I believe that Leia was probably the most emotional one that made the most sense out of all the 3 deaths. Let me just be clear about that. And they also had to do that, let's be honest. I mean, Carrie Fisher was no longer with us, rest in peace. But we also know that they could have easily, if they really wanted to, have at least kept the Skywalker alive like Ben Solo. But moving on. Now he goes on to state further, this business can be tough, especially when you are first handling such a major IP and brand, that we found it difficult on what fans would enjoy or turn away from. We only hope to improve our efforts moving onwards, both with our parks and our films and shows, surrounding this ever-evolving brand such as Star Wars. Now again, I've mentioned this several times, Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel was an abysmal failure, it always was. It never looked like a Star Wars attraction to me, or an experience, whatever you want to call it. And there's already a lot of rumblings right now. We've talked about this last week. There are rumblings that what they want to do with that empty space now, well, not just yet, but it will be empty by this September. What they want to do with the soon-to-be empty space that was once Galactic Star Cruiser is that they want to turn it into a regular Star Wars themed hotel. What they should have done right from the beginning, like any other hotel in Las Vegas. If you guys have ever been to Las Vegas, go ahead and visit it, it's a blast. Every hotel has its own theme. It's not necessarily an experience where you're stuck there for 2 days, you can't go outside. It's not like that, obviously. So Disney wants to pursue a Star Wars themed hotel now in replacing the Star Cruiser experience. So let's just be clear about that. Basically, I think that was their big failure with that, is that they didn't really think correctly on that one. So when you look at stuff like The Force Awakens, absolutely they should have kept Han Solo alive. I think that it felt like a cheap move to kind of bring fans into the theater. It was also a cheap move to make fans believe that we were going to get all 3 characters back together again. And we didn't. We didn't get that at all. That was a big missed opportunity, probably one of the biggest failures among a major studio as big as Disney. That's how much they did not understand Star Wars, that you need to have at least had the 3 characters have a reunion. And I understand the story was about Luke being not present and how he was in hiding, but hey, you could have also done it in Episode 8, right? Absolutely you could have, and they still didn't do it then. So there's really no excuse as to why they didn't do that, and the only excuse most likely is just the fact that they don't care, or they didn't care about those characters at the time. So now they're rushing to really kind of salvage the pieces and bring it all back together again. So guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.